Welcome to the Detroit Association of Black Storytellers for Friday Story Hour. Today is Christmas, so we have some great Christmas stories for you this evening. Hi, I'm Jatu Gray, president of DABS and your host for tonight's program. The first teller is Pamela Williams. She began telling in 2013 as a motivational speaker and storyteller, presenting speeches and workshops that console and counsel. Known in the community for humorous and engaging stories, Pamela became a member of DABS in 2010. Serving as membership chair for 3 years and 8 years as immediate former vice president from 2012 to 2019. After completion of her term, she relocated to Georgia, welcomed by the Kumba Black Storytellers of Atlanta. She longed for the Detroit Association of Black Storytellers. And as the old adage goes, there's no place like home. Please help me give a warm welcome as I introduce to some and present to others, Pamela, the storyteller.
The weather outside is frightful. The snow is so delightful. I have nowhere to go. Ho, ho, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Thank you, Madam Host and Asante, fellow dabbers, and most welcome and honored guests. It is I, Pamela, the storyteller. And I'm here because I was asked to share a story or two with you about 6 weeks ago. And I know it's the busiest time of the season, not just for me, but for many of you as well. But I just wanted to take a moment, stop by and share. Now, I just needed to determine, okay, which stories will I share with you today? And, then it hit me. So let me introduce to some and present to others the story of me, myself, and I. Born in Jacksonville, Florida, raised in Detroit, Michigan, birthed by a mother, raised by a grandmother. When I was a child, I spoke as a child, but you know what? I really didn't say childish things. It was at the young, tender age of 11 that I had the revelation that one day I would be queen of his world and mother to a handful of pearls. Caloric to some, sanguine to others, colorblind years ago, perfect vision now and forevermore. As I gather my bread and butter with game face on the outside and an activist on the inside, I am complex to some, but empathizing to others. Cat got tongue to a few, selectively loquacious to whom I choose, brief and direct, facing my challenges, yet narrowing down my defeats. A lot is accomplished with just one arithmetic beat. It seems like it was just yesterday when I got the revelation of what would be my greatest accomplishments in this lifetime. Now, to receive such a powerful hit of reality at such a young age was more than I could contain at the time. As soon as I got the information, it went across my eyes. I just had to run and find my buddy and tell him. I'm shouting running from the den to the living room. Dad, all excited. Dad, Dad, I know what I'm gonna do with the rest of my life. I know what I'm gonna do, what I'm gonna be. And when I got to the handful of pearls, he said, whoa, whoa, whoa. As some will say, pump your brakes. But slow down. Enjoy being a kid while you can. Because once you're grown for life. Defeated, I somberly turned slowly and began to walk away, back into the den, thinking he's not hearing me. But in essence, it was I that could not hear him. I couldn't because I had to be about my Heavenly Father's business. Anything different, and I would have not completed my 5 greatest accomplishments. Yes, Ted, Trinell, Devin, Isaiah, and Destiny. Baby girl Destiny. That's right. 5 children, 4 boys, 1 girl, and 6 grandchildren, 5 girls and 1 boy, and counting. Oh, now, every now and then, I think back on what my dad, my earthly father, the advice he gave me, the words were true nonetheless. However, I couldn't heed to what he advised. As I said, I had to be about my Heavenly Father's business. Anything different would have changed the purpose. And so being obedient, yes, is what I needed to be. Had I not, I wanted to continue to receive his everlasting love on the other side. Wow. Everlasting love on the other side. Now, no words, no matter how tender, can touch what I'm feeling inside. For I have always known that there is love, everlasting love on the other side. Now let me explain. Now, the love of a wonderful grandmother, yes, it fills the days with sweet memories long after her presence is gone. I can still feel the warmth of her caring and sharing, and her deep, bearing wisdom will never depart. Now, for the love of a wonderful grandmother is something that will always live in the hearts of all the lives that she touched, and through the stories that she lived, and through the stories that she told. And it was because of the stories she told that inspired me to tell those same stories and just be a storyteller. So I tell you what, come, go with me just momentarily. The year was 1924. Yeah, spring of the ear, as she would say. The birds were singing and the flowers were springing. Oh, yes. It was a beautiful day when that veiled-eyed baby girl Martha was born. Oh, my God. She was introduced to me as Granny. But when I was old enough to really realize the treasure that I had in her, I renamed her Gran. Oh my God, Gran, because she was so grand to me. Oh my gosh, Gran, she lived her life as always being concerned about others. She lived her life not with a formal education, but with mother wit. She lived as a missionary with a ministry of giving. Yeah, she never, I mean, never knew the meaning of the word stranger. For if you needed money, clothes, shelter, or just a listening ear, hey, you hungry? Nothing but a word. Because even if you weren't, you would soon be. Once you got a whiff of that sensational aroma that constantly came out of her kitchen. Oh my gosh. You know, Gran would always pray for the sick, the widow, and even the orphans. But most of all, she loved teaching the word to those who particularly had never been taught his word. For she knew that his grace was sufficient. And Lord Jesus, yes, the Lord's grace truly was sufficient. It took her from pain to promise. Now, that would not be the ending for her life. It will be the beginning. But oh, how I wish I could just continue to hold her. I wish I could just walk into the room, see her smile light up on her face as my smile lit up on my face when her eyes would meet. Oh, I wish I could hear her say, look here, baby, everything is gonna be all right. Just one more time. I wish I wasn't having these selfish feelings of wanting to keep her here in this place, on this side, right here beside me. Well, in 2003, I got the word of comfort that she was going to be going to a better place. Now, deep down, I knew she was going to be all right in that better place. It's just the love. Well, Webster describes love as being tenderly attached. Well, I could only have given her my attachment as long as or until I am no more here. But his attachment is eternal and it's forevermore. Because you see, he will always be the everlasting love on the other side. Wow, that's a powerful four-letter word, love. Yes, it is. And I am so blessed to be surrounded and to know what love is. Yes, I am surrounded with love. You know, love is effortless. It's the fun times and the memories that we create together. Love is unexpected. You have to open up your heart to receive it. Otherwise, you might miss that it has always been right there and for you. Love is accepting. Yeah. It is never dismissive. It is patient. It is caring. It is giving. And it is the opposite of this, for it is nice. It's ready to say sorry when the word sorry is not a part of your vocabulary. Well, simply put, love is a beauty that cannot be denied. So, to all my sisters, of other misters and brothers, of other mothers, here's to embracing his everlasting love on the other side. The snow is so delightful. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Merry Christmas and Asante.
And that was Pamela. I know you enjoyed that story. And without further ado, I have another teller for you. His name is Eddie J. Sanders. Now, Eddie takes pride in being a storyteller who tells stories that warms both your heart and soul. His stories are mostly personal experiences of his life journey. He's a retired police officer who served our country and takes great satisfaction in sharing his stories. Eddie's title of the story is Big Louie.
Today, we're going to talk about Big Louie. Big Louie was a big man. He was 6'7". He weighed 365 pounds, and he was a bully. When I say he was a bully, I mean he would jump on anybody, and he would jump on them for no reason at all most of the time. One day, they had a contest at Pingree Park, which is located on Forest and Seminole. And it was between Wilt Chamberlain and Reggie Harding. Reggie Harding at the time went to Eastern High School, and he just graduated from Eastern, and he became a Detroit Piston. Wilt Chamberlain played for the Philadelphia 76ers. And Big Louie considered himself to be as good as those two people because he was 6'7" himself, and he weighed 265. At any rate, one day when he was playing with Wilt Chamberlain, he elbowed Wilt Chamberlain in the side, and Wilt Chamberlain grabbed hold to him and smacked him. And Big Louie apologized profusely because he didn't want no parts of Wilt Chamberlain. But the next day, he was playing baseball, and this guy was getting ready to go to the bat. Big Louie snuck up behind him with a baseball bat and hit him in the back, almost killed him, and said that the man owed him a quarter. A quarter? He almost killed somebody over a quarter. Well, he considered himself to be the king of Pingree Park, and he would tell people where to go and when to go and who could come and who could not come. At any rate, one day I was a small person at that time. I was only about 5'4". I weighed less than 100 pounds, and I was 13 years old, but I looked like I was 10. At any rate, I was a good chess player, and I used to play chess at Pingree Park all the time. In fact, I would go up there every day and play chess, and I became kind of good at it. Well, Big Louie came over one day and said, "Hey, I want you to teach me how to play chess." I said, "Well, that's fine." Well, the first time we played chess, I let it play out. I just wanted him to get his confidence up, you know what I'm saying? So I let it play out, and it had about 4 pieces on the board before I, checkmated him. The second time, I actually did what I was supposed to do. I just played the game, because I'd already taught him the basics of everything. And the third time, I beat him in 4 moves. Well, Big Louie didn't like that. Big Louie grabbed hold of me, he picked me up, he smacked me upside my head, he kicked me in my rear end, pushed me down, and told me to get out the park and never to come back again. Well, I didn't appreciate that, and I had tears in my eyes, but I wasn't crying. So I left the park. I went home. That night, I laid in the bed. I couldn't sleep because that was my only recreation. I didn't have a lot of friends at the time. And the people that I considered to be my friends were the people who I played with at the park. Well, I prayed all night long. I prayed that I wouldn't see Big Louie, that I could go back to the park and Big Louie somehow would not be there. Because I didn't want no parts of the man, because I didn't see what he do. And like I said, he almost killed that other guy. And that wasn't the only one he had beat up on. He had beat up on a lot of people. kids and grown-ups. He didn't care. He did not discriminate. Any rate, after praying all night long, I decided I'm going to go back up to the park. I'm over there at the park. I'm hiding behind trees. I'm hiding behind houses. I'm looking around, trying to make sure that Big Louie is not there. Well, the thing is that I didn't see Big Louie. So I sat down, and my friend Walter was sitting at the picnic table. Me and Walter started playing chess. I kept on looking around for Big Louie because I was going to run if I saw him. But I didn't see him. Meanwhile, me and Walter's playing chess. Big Louie sneaks up behind me. He grabs hold to me and tells me he's going to kill me because he had told me that I'm not, not to come to that park anymore. Well, I decided, well, hell, if he's going to kill me, I'm going to go down fighting. So I started swinging. And lo and behold, every time I would swing, I would hit something. I hit him in his eye. I hit him in his nose. I hit him in his mouth. I mean, every time I hit, I don't know, it's like my hands was guided. And every time I hit him, something swelled up. Okay, Big Louie grabbed hold to me and just swung me. Now, Big Louie's hands was about that big. I mean, he was a big man. His hands was as big as my thigh. And when he swung me, instead of staying down, I jumped back up. I ran over, jumped on a picnic table, and dived on him and started swinging again. And I started hitting him again. Well, I found out something about Big Louie. Big Louie was slow. He's a big and he's strong, but he was slow. And so he swung me off again. This time, when I ran and jumped on it, I jumped on his back. And I started beating him in the face with my fist as hard as I could. And I had a hangnail, and I started cutting him up. And so his face was getting cut up. Meanwhile, he was trying to back up against a tree, but before he could do that, I dropped off and I got underneath the picnic table. From the picnic table, I was kicking up. And every time he tried to get underneath that picnic table, I'd kick him with my feet. And I'd be kicking him in the face most of the time. At any rate, Big Louie was mad now. I mean, his face was all messed up. His clothes was torn off his back and stuff. I mean, it looked like he had been in a fight with some big guy. So he pulls out his knife, and he gonna cut me. Well, just at that time, the police came up. And the police said, well, what is this all about? Because there's a big sign that said no fighting right there at the park. And he said, by the order of the sheriff department, and anybody caught fighting is going to jail. Okay. Well, Big Louie, Big Mouth, said, well, I had told this punk not to come back up here. And I'm the king of Penry Park. And everybody they do what I tell them to do. Well, the police officer said, well, who are you to tell anybody that they can't use the park? I'm the king of Penry Park. And what I say goes around here. And so he interviewed me, and I explained to him, I said, sir, he sneaked up behind me. He jumped on me, he started beating the hell out of me, and I didn't have a choice. I had to defend myself the best I could. I knew I couldn't whoop him, but at the same time, I just wanted to get away. I tried to run, but I couldn't. And so I had to fight him. And so I just did the best I could. Well, the police officer said, well, you did pretty good because look at his face and look at yours. You just got a little dust on you. And he beat up real good. Well, I tell you what, we have a warrant for you, Big Louie. Big Louie said, I ain't going nowhere. And you can't make me. Well, it was only 2 cops there at the time, but they called for backup. And they kept on talking to Big Louie. About 3 more cars came up. So now we got 8 police officers out there. And Big Louie decided, well, hey, I'm not going without a fight. Well, they got the fighting all right. And they handcuffed him, but Big Louie's hands were so big that they couldn't put the handcuffs on him. They had to use plastic handcuffs. And so they tied his hands behind his back, they tied his feet, and they threw him in the scout car, and they took him away. Meanwhile, they took me to my mother's house, explained to my mother what had happened, and told my mother that I should be very proud, that she should be very proud of me because of what I did. Well, the next day I went back up to Penry Park. Everybody was happy to see me because they was glad to get rid of Big Louie. Big Louie was a bully, and he had bullied just about everybody up there. And the girl in the supply tent actually kissed me on the cheek. Now, that's the first time I've ever been kissed. And boy, I was happy about that. So, I mean, you know, the moral of the story, though, is that in life, you're going to run across challenges, but you got to go with the flow. You got to fight back. And I'm not just talking about physical challenges. It's going to be mental challenges. It's going to be all kinds of challenges. But the thing is that if you have courage, it's going to show. I would like to thank you for this opportunity to tell my story.
And that was the police officer, Eddie J. Sanders. Did you like that story? Was it exciting? Yes, it was. I just love his stories. Now, our next teller is Mildred Matlock, a PhD. She's a motivational storyteller who uses personal stories to engage audiences in the community, worship, and competitive venues. Participants in her workshops learn to develop stories to enliven the family tree and preserve family values. Her commitment to audiences is to share memorable, humorous stories that educate, entertain, inspire new self-perception. She says, God has made me laugh, and all who hear will laugh with me. So let's get ready to laugh.
Santa don't like naughty. He's making a list, checking it twice, gonna find out who's naughty or nice. Santa Claus is coming to town, but he's not coming to my house. Christmas is one of my favorite holidays, despite what happened to me when I was 7 years old. Now, I really did understand the reason for the season. I mean, I went to Sunday school and I practiced and sang in the Christmas pageants, but I'm embarrassed to say it now. I still loved getting toys and gifts. After all, I was 7. It's what kids want. I was really into toys. And then I found out during the time that I was 7 that the words to that song were true. Santa don't like ugly. I guess I really didn't know how long I had to be good to actually get on the good list. But you know what? It might help if I gave you a little background. My parents never missed an opportunity to teach me a lesson. They were Depression era kids. Now, Daddy grew up in a small West Virginia mining town, and he didn't talk much about what his Christmases were like when he was a kid. I'm going to assume they were unremarkable and pretty spare. My mother, on the other hand, grew up in a large farm in a small town, if you could even call it a town, with 15, well, she was one of 15, 14 brothers and sisters. They were happy with the basics. For example, every year they watched their Christmas tree grow up until they could find the biggest, tallest, fullest Christmas tree to chop down to bring in the house before their daddy gave it to some more needy neighbors. And then they decorated their trees. And you know what they decorated them with? Those chains made out of paper that they made in school or at home and glued together. They didn't have any electricity, so there were no sparkling lights on that tree. They knew Christmas gifts were coming, and they expected some things, but they certainly knew they weren't going to get it from an old fat dude sliding down the chimney. They weren't going to write any lists to Santa to deliver at the North Pole. They knew the source of their gifts, and that was Aunt Hattie. Aunt Hattie lived in Atlanta, and she was a cook for, to quote my mama, some really, really rich white folks. Every year, when that great big box arrived at the Guilford farm and it had Aunt Hattie's return address on it, they knew they were in for a treat. The first thing they knew, there were going to be puzzles. Puzzles for one person, puzzles for a group, puzzles where you could have two people on one side of the table and two people on the other working on those puzzles. They knew they were going to have hard candy, candy you couldn't get in Beloit, Alabama. And they knew they were going to get some hand-me-down clothes. Now, those rich kids barely took the tags off the clothes. Sometimes they had never even worn them. And they turned their noses up at those clothes that were from last season. But the Guilford kids looked forward to wearing those clothes from the North. Now, why did I tell you that? Because that was not my idea of a successful Christmas. Now, it's not my fault that I had such high expectations for Christmas. After all, my parents moved to the North from the South in order to give me certain advantages. And they wanted to take advantage of that post-World War II prosperity. So when they came up here from their small mining towns and their large farm in a small town, they made things easy for me. At Christmas time, they put me in a frilly dress and they slicked down my pigtail. And they took me to the 12th floor, wasn't it, of Hudson's. And they sat me on Santa Claus's lap. And I got to tell Santa what I wanted for Christmas. Just me. It was all about me. But I wasn't willing to pay the price. I kind of liked being naughty more than I liked being nice. I think things took a turn for the worst when I was about 7. And my teacher, Miss Foster, was my problem. Or maybe I was her problem. At any rate, I was always in competition with her for the classroom's attention. And she always won. And my punishment was that she put me in solitary confinement. That's right. I had to sit under the teacher's desk and watch those other kids, those goody two-shoe kids who she said I was bothering, watch them have a good time while I sat under the desk. But my parents didn't have to wait for those regular parent-teacher conferences. They always had a special invitation to meet with my teachers, like Miss Foster. Now, I was always worried the night before Christmas because up until Thanksgiving, I was a royal pain. Spankings at home, solitary confinement at school. I was okay in Sunday school and at church because I had a good feeling that the pastor and God himself had their eyes on me when I was in church. Now, I hadn't had much experience with Christmas. I was only 7, but my mother told me that though Santa Claus was coming to town, because I was so bad, he wasn't coming to my house. But every Christmas, by some miracle, I would walk downstairs when the sun barely was up in the sky and look in that living room, and there was an incredible bounty. When I think of Christmas morning, I think of my living room full of gifts, surrounding a tree that was brightly lit with all kinds of lights, where there were those tinsels silver tinsels draped on every branch. And where that tree smelled of pine and seemed to stretch all the way to the ceiling. And of course, there were all kinds of toys for me, and maybe a few for my parents as well. Not toys, but gifts. And I would shout at the top of my lungs, "Mama, Daddy, wake up. Santa came here last night. There's toys, and there's still some things for you too." Each year, I fooled Santa. But on my 7th Christmas, things were a little different. I went to bed with the usual worries, eyes wide open, big as $50, and I couldn't go to sleep. I was awake for what seemed like an eternity. As I drifted off, I was aware of the smells of Christmas. You know, fresh cookies baking, pies baking, cakes baking, hot homemade rolls baking, even homemade candy. And I also was aware of the sounds of Christmas. You know, the clatter and thumps and bumps that came from our attic. I could have sworn they were the sounds of the reindeer on the roof come to bring Santa to me. Now, at some time before dawn, on that 7th Christmas, I realized that I had actually been asleep. So I out of bed and I raced downstairs, ready to make the inventory of my bounty. I stopped at the threshold of the living room, and the stained glass doors were wide open, welcoming me. And in the middle of the living room, there was a beautiful Christmas tree with all kinds of lights, with tinsel draped over the branches, and with store-bought decorations. That tree looked like it stretched all the way up to the ceiling, and then there was a star on top. And there was nothing else in that living room except for the furniture. Wow! What happened? Was I a day early? Couldn't be right. Did someone come in and burglarize my house? It didn't seem that way. So there was only one other thing that I could think of. I was finally paying the price for being naughty and not nice. I was too ashamed to wake up my parents because I didn't want them to know that Santa had found me out. So I did what any thinking child would do. I went back to bed and assumed that maybe he was just late. But if you think I had trouble going to bed to sleep the first time, this time it seemed like I had taken a week's supply of no-dos. I was wide awake for most of what seemed like the night. When I woke at the normal time, I creeped, inched back to the living room. And nothing had changed. Beautiful tree, no gifts. But this time, I wasn't so subtle about my display of anger and upset. Mama! Daddy! Something's wrong. Mama woke up. What's wrong with you, girl? There's no toys. There's no gifts. What happened to Santa? How could this happen to me? My parents were completely unconcerned. Daddy didn't even wake up, or so it seemed. Mama said, if you've been good, maybe Santa's just running late. Then she went back to sleep, or so it seemed. I swear to this day I heard Mama humming that darn Santa Claus is coming to town song. So I went back to bed again. It was all true. I couldn't get the words out of my head. Here's a list, checking it twice. Gonna find out who's naughty or nice. Wow! You can't have toys if you're in the Naughty Hall of Fame. What was I gonna tell my friends? When Barbara was going to tell me, I got a new doll for Christmas, and I got a Dale Evans cowgirl skirt, and I got a toy stove. And Brenda was going to tell me I got a doll too, and her eyes blink, and I got a nice pink snowsuit. What did you get, Mildred? I was ruined. My life was over. I cried myself to sleep, not quietly. And I wanted my parents to know that I knew that they had snitched and told Santa some extra stuff that even he didn't know about me. Well, after I cried myself to sleep, I awoke later in the day and found toys. They were there. My parents told me that they had convinced Santa to give me one more chance. I never did ask the key question, why was Santa delivering toys in the middle of the day? But what did I care? I got my toys. Now, years later, my parents explained to me that my father had had to do a lot of work around the holidays and that he really didn't have enough time to do the other, some assembly required thing. And so they decided to use this as an opportunity to teach me a lesson. Did it work? Well, I became a model student, and look at me now. Christmas is still my favorite holiday. And my friends, that is all I have until the next time.
There you have it. 3 wonderful stories. Please subscribe to this YouTube page so that you will get notifications of when our shows are starting. Hey, if you're enjoying our stories, we're asking that you take a moment and donate to the Detroit Association of Black Storytellers. You can do that through PayPal. Thank you for tuning in this beautiful Christmas Eve, and hope you have a great Kwanzaa. I'm Jatu Gray, President of the Detroit Association of Black Storytellers, and your host. Turning it back to the studio, we'll see you January 2022.
Thank you for attending tonight's program presented by Detroit Association of Black Storytellers. All rights of Dad's Fourth Friday Story Hour is a copyright of Detroit Association of Black Storytellers and cannot be rebroadcasted or re-recorded without the written permission and a written consent of the Detroit Association of Black Stories Incorporated. If you missed any of tonight's performance, you can tune into Dad's podcast for a replay of this broadcast on buzzsprouts.com or come to the Detroit Association of Black Storytellers YouTube page right here and watch the entire program again. If you live in the Detroit area and have interest in becoming a storyteller, please contact Dabs at dabstorytellers@gmail.com. That's dabstorytellers@gmail.com or call 313-442-3227. That's 313-442-3227. If you happen to live outside of the Detroit area and are interested in becoming a storyteller, please visit the National Association of Black Storytellers website or call 410-947-1117. That's 410-947-1117. Or email them at questions@nabsinc.org. That's questions@nabsinc.org. NABS will connect with you and a storyteller association in a city near you. Hey everyone, in the Detroit Association of Black Storytellers are so pleased you joined us this Christmas Eve and Kwanzaa season. Our next concert is Friday, January 28th, 2022. Concert time is at 7 p.m. Doors open at 65. Right here on Detroit Association of Black Storytellers YouTube page. Take a minute and subscribe to our page so that you do not ever miss this program starting time, or also notified when we have added some amazing stories. If you enjoyed any of our broadcasts last season 2020 and so far this season 2021, we'd like you to take a moment and find in your hearts and send a donation so that we can keep bringing you these amazing stories and programs such as tonight. It is as simple as you going to PayPal, bring up Detroit Association of Black Storytellers, and donate as your heart desires. Your gift will be greatly appreciated. Our next concert is January 28th, 2022. We have three amazing storytellers, Equala Walker, Christina Watson, and Tone Ross with your host, Mama John 2. Again, thank you for joining us as we gave you some Fireside Blazing Bright Stories by Pamela Williams, Eddie Saunders, Mildred Madlock, with your host, Mama John 2 Gray. Our music director, Michelle McKinney. Our production engineer is Jasmine Ross, Tone Ross, program director, along with the Detroit Association of Black Storytellers. We thank you for attending the Dad's Fourth Friday Story Hour. See everyone in the new year, 2022, Friday, January 28th at 7 p.m. Please be safe. Peace and blessings to you all. Until next time, Ashe.